Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a very special edition of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends. And that's right, folks. You normally see this show 7 p.m. Wednesday evenings, which, of course, today we will be back. And we have a very special guest, community badass himself, Dealer Gaming, will be joining us for the podcast. We're going to be talking about God of War Ragnarok, which we're going to be talking about here today as well. We're going to be talking also about the harassment of devs and how that has become an epidemic in gaming and why it needs to stop. No one side is right or in this. There are people on PlayStation that are toxic MFs. There are people on the Xbox side that are just as worse. And I can't really say much for Nintendo, but I'm sure that they have their toxic community as well. And then, of course, we're going to talk about in the second half of tonight's show with Dealer Gaming, what does 2023 look like for Xbox? More importantly, what does the second half of that year look like? Because, listen, if you follow me, you know that I am hypercritical on the way Microsoft does things. And that's because I'm a huge fan of the brand. And sometimes, like in 2022, they let us down. Is it gloom and doom? No, it's not. But they sometimes do things in extremes. And what I'm hoping for is not a repeat of what we saw this year, kind of what we saw last year. The first half of the year, there was nothing. The last half of the year, it was a party town, all right? This year, nothing. Next year is going to dominate for them in regards to first party. They have 3 major bombs and potentially 4 if Deathloop stays and comes out next year. But that's the first 6 months, potentially. What happens at the back half of 2023? From June to January. I don't know. I honestly, or from June to December. I don't know. But we're going to break it down. We're going to ask Dealer what he thinks and what the panel thinks. But we're here, folks, to talk about God of War Ragnarok. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously, Web Dave, Fuzzy Belvedere. We don't need to do, proper introductions. We will do proper outros. I want to get into the conversation immediately. It was announced by Sony PlayStation proper, and of course Sony Santa Monica, who is developing the sequel to 2018's Game of the Year, God of War Ragnarok. It has a official release date for this year, and I'm going to be honest with you, folks. I thought that this was going to be delayed. Happy that it's not. Because I am going to be knee deep in this game, and if it's as good as what you see on the screen, folks, I got a funny suspicion that it could be my game of the year. And mind you, I haven't even played it yet. I originally gave God of War 2018 the nod for game of the year, and at the last second, folks, it was taken off the table, and it just missed that my for Assassin's Creed Origins, which is, man, I put a lot of time into that game. It was a masterpiece. And I actually, to this day, folks, I'll say it live on the air, and I know you can quote me or you can take a clip of this. I actually feel guilty that it should have been God of War. There's no doubt about it. As great as Assassin's Creed was, God of War was and is a masterpiece. And obviously, this footage, folks, I literally ran home after talking to Kay Asante because, I'm doing some errands and stuff. And I said, okay, let me throw up the thumbnail. Let's get this podcast rolling because I know there's going to be a lot of people that want to hear what we have to say and potentially want to talk with us in the chat. And let me record some footage. So this is fresh footage. This is the entire first hour. So there's no spoilers. First hour of God of War 2018. This is the PlayStation 5 version that you see in front of you. And it just looks absolutely stunning. It's crazy that this game is from 2018. It really is. But here, I want to start off with something that is, I think, incredibly important to mention. And I have to tip my hat to Corey Barlog and the entire team over at Sony Santa Monica. And why do I do that? Well, besides Corey being an absolute stand-up guy, the guy is one of my favorites in the industry. I levy his persona right to Phil Spencer. I think that he is a genuine human being, and he presents himself in such a proper manner on the socials that all you can do is smile when you see he tweets stuff out there, whether it be to defend his folks at the studio, whether it is to destroy a troll trying to be a D-bag. Corey's not shy about telling you about yourself, and that's what I love about him. But why I want to congratulate and tip the cap to Sony Santa Monica, PlayStation, Sony, is because they could have done something incredibly petty. They could have done something that would have incited a console war unlike anything that we've seen since This Is How You Share Games. And it appears, and again, I don't know where this decision came from, but I, again, have to applaud Sony proper, PlayStation proper, and of course, more importantly, Sony Santa Monica. And what am I talking about? Well, 11/11/22 was supposed to be the release date of Starfield. And that obviously is not happening. In fact, we don't know when next year it's coming, but it's coming the first half. And Sony could have done what Sony does best, and that is curb stomp Microsoft when they're down. And they chose not to do that. God of War is coming 11/9/22. And I think that might have been done. And again, I'm only guessing here, folks, because I don't know Corey Barlog where I can have the phone. Hey, Corey, what's up, brother? What date you picking? I wish I did, but I don't. So I'm assuming that because Corey and the team over there want to present the game for what they made, they want that to be the conversation. They want us to talk about, holy shit, God of War Ragnarok is a masterpiece. It's a masterclass achievement. It is 10 times better than the original, which you see in front of you. That's the conversation they want us to have. And I'm happy that that's a conversation that we're going to have this year, because obviously I've been saying for the longest time, and I'll take the L on this one, I thought for sure that this game was going to be delayed. And I really, really dug my heels into the sand saying that when The Last of Us was announced. I think, is that September, guys? Just yeah, it's September. Yeah. So I thought, well, okay, listen, Sony normally doesn't put any of their big bangers in the October, November, and December. So they're probably holding it for January.
Hey,
and
Boom.
Yes.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, but there is I stuck it in a private chat for you to read. There is a comment that was made, and I've heard this from Ash and Luca as well. That
okay. So Biggie Butters says 11/9/22 is Odin's Day. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and I've heard that from Ash and Luca as well.
Yeah,
too.
Thank you, Ash and Luca, for that, because that's pretty cool. Now it makes sense. But like I said, I really have to say that I'm proud of Sony for not taking the low road and doing it proper. And I'm glad they have a date. Again, I have to take the L publicly because I thought this game was going to be delayed. We did get a delay today, and if before we get into what the panel thinks, and we'll continue talking about it. Hopefully, we have a couple more guests that are going to be joining us momentarily. Forspoken has been delayed until next year, and folks, that makes perfect sense. Like, think about it. It's a new IP. It's an exclusive IP for PlayStation 5. The game, it doesn't grab me yet. I find the game interesting, but it is an open world game. You know, the Assassin's Creed, the God of War, the Horizon type of game. I was not that interested. The last video made me a little bit more interested. I don't know if it's a day one for me, but think about this. Does this new IP from Square, which Sony is a very good partner friend of, do you want to put that in the middle of God of War and The Last of Us 2 remake? No, we would see a Titanfall 2 situation. It would just get destroyed. They would eat its lunch. So I'm glad that it got delayed. More time for polishing, which is great. Square has plenty of people working on it, so I'm sure the game is going to look even better. But listen, let's enough of me talking, which is, I get a little long-winded. Mrs. Boom tells me all the time. Dave, let's talk about this. 11/9/2022, God of War Ragnarok releasing. It has several versions. It has a super ridiculous collector's edition with Thor's hammer. So obviously Thor is going to be a big part of this. What are your thoughts on the announcement?
I think it's great. I mean, we've all been waiting for it. Like you said, you, me, are for sure, and Fuzzy plays Xbox as well too. But I mean, we're big fans of that console, but we are big fans of games first, and this is going to be an amazing game from amazing team, high quality developers, and really looking forward to the new one coming out, and with the with the date, it's like, I'm glad. I mean, say all you want, and fanboys can do whatever, but it's like, it's good for the industry that there's a game like this coming out, period, because it's I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready to play this thing. I'm starting to contemplate the collector's edition. There's actually 2 levels of collector's edition. Both of them have the hammer. The other one has additional pins and the ring and things like that in it as well. Don't know the price point on those yet. I'm sure they might be out there already, but I personally don't know the price point. Fuzzy, do you know the price point on any of that?
No,
probably $200 and $300.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me. Look, I'm going to be honest. Mrs. Boom and I are trying to get out of this apartment.
Yeah,
I mean, it's great. We live where it is. It's nice. We keep it really clean. It's awesome. But we want our own space. Yeah. So I have toned down the collector's edition. I wound up returning the Horizon one. I had pre-ordered it. It was very expensive. And then I sat on it and I was like, man, this mammoth is stupid. Why did I? Because I have the original one. The original one is great because it's Aloy. If the original God of War is Atreus and Kratos, which is great. The hammer is nice. It's nice looking. It's Thor's hammer, for crying out loud. But I can't justify it. I'll try and maybe buy like the steel case because I love the steel books. I have a ton of them. I have all of the Sony steel books. Everyone, even some going back to PlayStation 3. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be expensive. No one has to talk me off a ledge, folks. I'd rather have put the money away for a home.
Of course. Yeah, and that totally makes sense. That makes total sense, man. So
listen, Dave, we'll come back around to you, brother. Let's get fuzzy. What are your thoughts on the announcement?
Well, I was one of those that, and I know this is going to sound petty or console war-ish, but I was like, oh yeah, go ahead and do that 11/11/22.
No, I said the same thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I said, if Sony really wants to turn the narrative back to their favor, because look, Sony is still a market leader. Let's be honest. They are who we thought they were, and they continue to deliver. Now, granted, their first 2 offerings this year, there's 87, 88 respectively, right? And we're going to get into the meta. I think this confirmation of God of War, at least in my opinion, and I'll say this first before anyone, it pretty much levies that they're going to be Publisher of the Year. There's no doubt about it. But continue, Fuzzy.
Yeah, I think for the most part, having this game drop this year, which I was kind of on the fence early on, and then when they put something on their main like Sony Santa Monica page, like saying that it was 2022, I'm like, oh yeah, they're going to try their best. I'm pretty sure they were quiet on social media because no one wants to talk about it, but they were crunching pretty hard to get everything across the finish line.
I'm sure they were, but something, here's the difference with the crunch of people crying under their desks. The folks at Sony Santa Monica, if they were crunching, and I would imagine that they were putting in a lot of hours, wasn't because someone was there whipping them to do it. This is a team that put out what you see in front of us. It's a masterclass achievement, right? They want to show what was been delayed for several years now because of COVID. Right. They want to show what they've been working on. And I'm sure that if someone on this team is listening, and I doubt that they are, a few people listen to the podcast, but not a lot of people. So I'm sure that they were like, listen, if I have to put in 12-hour days to get this out this year, let's do it.
Yeah.
And it was probably a unanimous way of saying, hey, listen, we want to show everyone what we've been up to. But please continue.
Yeah, I think they really wanted to deliver on this year, especially, and I won't say especially, but since Starfield kind of moved out of the way, so it gives it a lot more airtime or a lot more spotlight. I
Yes.
think this was probably their best decision. Sure, they could have pushed it to 2023 and everything would have been right in the world the same.
But then again, if they do that, Fuzzy, they're going up against potentially Starfield.
Yeah, so
So
yeah, I think they wanted to get this out this year, and I agree with you when you were saying with the whole Last of Us remaster deal that, oh yeah, they don't need to have it this year, but what better way to kind of like bookend the year? I mean, you start with Horizon. Yes, I know it had its issues, and GT even had its own issues, but they were still, well received, although not as well received as they could have been. But this is the way you definitely end the year on a good note. And yes, a remaster is great of a great game, but having the second iteration of God of War based on the 2018 reboot, I think it was definitely welcomed or definitely a good thing as far as the news this morning.
yeah, no doubt about it. Johnny Ravioli, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the program. He says something pretty interesting. He says this: I feel like crunch is needed. Making games is hard work. You know what you're signing up for. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
here's the thing.
As long as you're not on an IV type of deal, like
Yeah,
we've heard the horror stories of the
an
past.
IV.
but I think
we actually heard, like, it's crazy. Some of the stories that we've heard is just bonkers. But continue.
Yeah, as long as it's not to the point where you're holding people against their will. Like I've done web design stuff, so I know about crunch on that end, and it's I would assume far easier than game design in all aspects. But there are times where it's like, all right, we have this deadline. A few things missed, or there's a few things that we need to tidy up. All right, we launch it. Oh, it's got this problem and this problem. We need to get these things tidied up before this launch date. And crunch is a part of life, unfortunately, but I think there's different levels of it. And I think a lot of the stuff that a lot of these studios are doing nowadays are probably on the up and up. Some of the stuff that we heard of in the past where it's like, oh yeah, you're sleeping under your desk and you're only allowed to go to the bathroom twice a day and you're hooked to an IV because you're about to pass out. Hopefully those days are gone, and if not, hopefully the devs are able to find better working conditions elsewhere. But I think it is kind of that necessary evil to some extent, because you do want to make sure when you have a deadline set that you meet it. And it doesn't mean that you choose that over life or your well-being, but there is a balance to be said as far as that's concerned. A 12-hour day for a couple of weeks, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. Yeah, it's hard, but afterwards you're able to relax. And usually if the game performs well, you have a bonus. So you have that extra R&R time afterwards as well.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Real quick, let me see if I could find it before I lose it.
There's
Blue Arrow in the chat says, I still think Elden Ring will probably win Game of the Year, even if God of War is awesome. Yeah, it's I mean, look, I'll put it this way. At the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of conversation. Horizon's going to be in that conversation. Now, granted, it did release buggy, and I started playing again. I haven't run into any bugs. I haven't put a lot into it, but I'm going to start playing it because I got the God of War announcement got me. Well, first of all, I started playing God of War again, which is just it's just a masterpiece. But I definitely want to finish Horizon this year. So I'm going to start playing that and, scratch the itch of my open world stuff because there's really nothing to play right now. And now that they just patched it again, I'm hoping that my experience with falling off and dying 20 times on a cliff is no longer an issue. But at the end of the year, I mean, again, bugs aside, hard not to have Horizon in that conversation. The game is gorgeous. And I would imagine, again, like I said, you're seeing a 1080p version on a small screen, right? And even though it looks good, I'm playing it with all the bells and whistles on my PS5 and on my Samsung 65-inch TV. And I got to tell you, this game is from 2018, and I am absolutely blown away by what they were able to create. This game is years old. It's potentially it's at this point almost 4 years old. It's crazy that it still looks this good. So I can only imagine what the final product of Ragnarok is going to look like. And now let's talk about meta for a second. Because last year Microsoft found themselves in a position where Sony had to delay a lot of their games. And they had a lot of their games, and every one of those games that they had last year were all top tier games. They were all high quality, high visual properties. And that's Psychonauts, that's Flight Simulator, that's Age of Empires 4, that's of course Halo Infinite, and of course the crown jewel of last year, at least in my opinion. And I think it could share with Halo is Forza Horizon 5. So they won Publisher of the Year because they had an onslaught of titles. And last year they won with a total of, I believe it was a score of 89 on the average, which is phenomenal. So Publisher of the Year for Microsoft in 2021. Now with what we have in front of us, I can honestly say without a doubt that Sony is going to handily win Publisher of the Year from Meta, just based on pure numbers. So 87 and 88 respectively for Gran Turismo 7 and Horizon. Not bad scores. Those are great scores. I know everyone wants 90s across the board. They didn't get 90s. It's fine. Where I think the 90s are going to come from this year for Sony. And again, this is just my opinion. This is not me fanboying. This is not me giving roses where other people think they don't deserve them. I think that it's safe to assume that God of War Ragnarok and Last of Us, the remake, are going to score at least at the minimum of a 90 apiece. So if they have two 90s, an 88 and 87, I think I'm not a mathematician, folks. That's right around the 89 mark. And which is Publisher of the Year for Microsoft in 21, could easily be the publisher score for Sony. And look, I'm going to say this. Please don't boo me, folks. But I'm being honest.
Here it comes.
I set myself on fire here like an idiot. Look what I did. Look at this. Look what a dummy. I know I was supposed to throw that thing. I don't remember how to pick it up. And I know how to throw it at that rock over there. And I set myself on fire like an idiot. Dumb. But
Boom is on fire.
Here's the thing. Yeah, I sure was. Here's the thing, folks. Sony has put together a year that I think rivals any year they've put together. I know that we equate their best year as potentially 2018, right? God of War, Spider-Man. I don't remember what else was in there. I think it was the Detroit Become Human was that year, I think also. And there was one other. They had a masterclass year, 18, 19, and 20. And you look at 22 now. Now, let's take away the fact that Gran Turismo, it had its problems, with the microtransactions. They've patched it since. The game definitely doesn't look as good as it probably should be, but the game is passable. Horizon had some bugs. There's no doubt about it. I complained about them, but the game is gorgeous. There's nothing you can say about the game graphically. It's another masterpiece from that studio. And they've been patching it, so I'm hoping that my experience is incredibly bad. I want them to match my experience from the first one, which is one of my favorite games in the PlayStation 4 era. I love Aloy. I think she's such a dynamite character for a multitude of reasons. And the growth of that character in the first 8 hours that I played it before the bugs really pissed me off was just was amazing. But look at Sony, what Sony has done once again. Why they continue to be the market leader. Why they continue to dominate the conversation when you talk about first party games, single player, story driven, adult themed games. The beginning of 2022, they put forth Horizon and they put and Gran Turismo. Bookending at the end of the year, and this is a Nintendo blueprint all over again. Is you're gonna have the remake of The Last of Us, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, boom, it's a remake. Blah. Yeah, I hear you, but it's You know, the comparison videos, it's crazy how good it looks. And now, obviously, God of War, at minimum, folks, at absolute minimum, it's going to look like what you see on your screen. If you don't think that's amazing, you don't think that is next level gaming, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry that we don't agree, but this is masterclass work in front of you. That's one hell of a year. That's one hell of a 2022. That's why I say publisher of the year for Sony for sure. But bookending or finishing off the year with two of their biggest IPs. Like, I know there are a lot of PlayStation toxic gamers that continue to run the narrative of, you know, Microsoft is just Halo, it's just Forza, and it's just Gears. And that may be true. But Sony has their go-tos as well. Last of Us, right? Another version of it. God of War, right? This is the sequel to what you see in front of you. Horizon, a sequel. You know what I'm saying? Gran Turismo is what, the 18th iteration. You know what I'm saying? So they have their go-tos as well. And this is something. This is something I think that it has to be spoken about. We got Daniel McGee joining us. What's going on, Daniel? How you feeling, brother? Welcome.
Hey, sorry, I thought today was going to be my day off, so I slept in.
Well, sorry about that, brother. Who knew? I don't usually go back to work until tonight on prime time, but I had to speak about this today, and we'll continue the conversation tonight. But yes, I mean, look, this is what we're hoping 2023 looks like for Microsoft. We know Starfield is going to be a masterpiece. We know that motorsport is probably going to be the best of all racers, even rivaling, believe it or not, the Playground Games Horizon 5. And of course, you know, Redfall, like we talked about on the Xbox Factor podcast yesterday, continues to impress. It looks phenomenal. My concern is what the second half of the year is going to look like for Xbox next year, and again, that's what we're going to be covering tonight with Dealer Gaming. What in fact does that look like? You know, I mean, I have a lot of questions, but Daniel, let's now that you're here, and then we'll do this round robin of what you expect God of War to be. What are your thoughts on the announcement? Is this announcement having to do anything with the harassment that's been going on? And what are your thoughts regarding them not taking the Starfield date, like specifically staying away from that and releasing it on the 9th instead of going for the toxicity or the nonsense that they like to stay away from? Now, Sony has been petty in the past, but I have a feeling that this decision to not take the 11/11/22 date probably came from Corey himself. And again, I'm only speculating. I don't know Corey Barlog, so I can't say for sure. But the way he handles himself in regards to toxicity and console war nonsense, it looks like him and the team didn't want us to be talking about, oh, they stole the Starfield date, they're rubbing poo in the face of Microsoft. They don't want us to talk about that, Daniel. They want us to talk about what God of War Ragnarok is going to potentially be. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I love Corey Barlog. I think he's one of the most outstanding people in the industry. I think if you watched what was that documentary called?
Raising
Kratos or something. Raising Kratos. Yeah.
Great.
If you've watched that, he's a upstanding guy. So I don't know if he necessarily would have had the call to say what date it came out, being as how I'm not even really sure if he's still attached to this game. I know he's not directing it, so I don't know what his listed as. To it is.
I believe he has producer credit. I don't know how much he produced, but he's credited in the game.
Right. Okay. So maybe. I think honestly, it's entirely possible that it's entirely possible that they just chose the date like well before even the Starfield thing was announced, like the delay, I mean, and they just stuck with it. It does feel weird, because we as players, right, we see the console war stuff on Twitter all the time about people, choosing one side or the other and being petty back and forth. But the devs, they don't care. You know what I mean? So it could have gone either way. I'm sort of glad that it didn't, because that way the conversation around this game doesn't have to be like, oh, and they stomped Xbox, where it could just be like, and it's a really good game. You know, it can sort of just stand on its own without all the console war stuff, although I'm sure it'll still be there because God of War is PlayStation's biggest franchise, bar none. As far as if this has something to do with the harassment, I think absolutely it does.
Okay. And please elaborate on that point. I really want to hear why you think that is.
Yeah, so not the date itself, obviously. I think that the date was probably, you know, chosen probably well in advance. It just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like such a random way to announce it, right? Like, this is their largest franchise bar none, right? Like, everything else that they have pales in comparison to Kratos in terms of how they sort of recognize with the brand. Like, people will throw Spider-Man in there, but Spider-Man isn't really owned by PlayStation, so Kratos is their biggest property. And so for them to just announce the release date of this just kind of
on a Twitter drop. Yeah.
With a Twitter drop and just a really random, it feels like, okay, just we have to get this release date out there so that people will stop sending pictures of their wangs to my employees. You know what I mean?
Which is the fact that it actually happened goes to prove that there is so much undiagnosed mental illness in this world. It's just not to be believed. But
it's insane. But yeah, so it does feel like maybe this was somewhat reactionary, especially when I consider. I've been looking forward to the next major PlayStation show for a while now, because when you think about it, we really don't know a lot of what PlayStation is doing. We know Insomniac is working on Spider-Man 2, and then after that, presumably they'll start working on Wolverine. We now know that Naughty Dog is probably at least partially working on the factions mode. I'm sure that their main team isn't working on that, but the factions gameplay thing, I'm sure they're working on that. And then the remake is probably not being worked on by them either. So really, the only games that we know coming out in the near future for PlayStation are Ragnarok and Spider-Man 2, which is not a lot for them. So honestly, I'm expecting their next showcase to be huge. Like, it's going to be probably one of their better showcases in a really long time.
It could, based on what you're saying, Daniel, and it makes a lot of sense. We don't know what Sony's doing. They keep their cards very close to the vest. And you might be onto something, because we don't know. I know they're not going to Gamescom. I don't know if they're going to be at the Tokyo Game Show, right? So I mean, that's in September. And there's been no announcement of their PlayStation end of year show, right? That they had that everyone looked forward to, because a lot of their big announcements came there. You are onto something. We don't know what they're doing. They have a lot of studios. I know everyone talks about Microsoft. They have 23. Sony has a lot of first party studios. They just acquired, I think, 7 of them, including Bungie, in the last 18 months. So they, I know that there's one that's working on, PC ports and things of that nature, but they do have a lot of their own studios, and we don't know what they're doing. It's safe to say that their next show could be a Year of Dreams kind of a show.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it probably will be, because, I mean, if Spider-Man 2 is supposed to come out next year, then we'll probably be seeing gameplay of it. And honestly, for me, that'd probably be enough, because I think, I mean, I'm one of the people who I think Spider-Man should have beaten out God of War that year for Game of the Year, because that game was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they both are really good, but yeah, we don't know a lot of what their studios are working on. So the next show that they have is going to be absolutely massive. And this coming out as just a random tweet on a random Wednesday morning feels like they wanted to get this release date out there for a number of reasons. And I think the 2 major reasons for that would be to put a stop to some of the harassment, although it does kind of feel like they're giving the harassers what they want, which does kind of irk me in a way. But, I also wanted the release date, so I'm happy for it. And then also, I think that this means that they're probably not having a showcase in the next 2 or 3 months, because if they were, then this would be in it.
Real quick, let me just, I think he pronounces Render. He says, y'all got to chill with the console war crap in the chat. That ain't what this channel's about. And thank you for saying that. Look, here's the thing, folks. I respect everyone's opinion unless it crosses the line, right? I don't like banning people. I don't like getting people off the channel, because I don't take anyone that's here. We have 350 people here. I don't take nobody for granted. You don't have to listen to this show. The fact that a retired police officer who didn't have any technical knowledge, just a love of gaming, somehow found a way to use what, because remember, if you don't know my history, I was a youth officer and I worked in community affairs. So I worked with the community as a police officer, right? And I have somehow, luckily, and through the tenacity that I have to learn new things, transition that knowledge to this channel. So if you're here and you're listening to the banter, and I've been doing this going on 5 years now. The channel was started in 2017. And here we are. This channel has been built the grassroots way. We do not take sides. I am an Xbox guy, quote unquote, right? Everyone, because that's my main console. I will play.
Yep.
That's where I get all my third-party games. I love my Xbox for a multitude of reasons, but I also give roses to both Nintendo because I play Nintendo Switch every day without fail with the misses, and I also have to give roses to Sony because they make games that someone like myself appreciates. I'm a selfish gamer. I want to put on my headphones and I want to play a single player, story driven, character based type of game, and they deliver that. The console war stuff in the chat, folks. Here's the thing: you're entitled to your opinion. I hear you. I know if you're an Xbox guy or gal and that's your brand, awesome, welcome. But today we are throwing roses at Sony on Primetime Gaming, the special edition, because quite frankly, they deserve it. Again, maybe the over-the-shoulder game, and I see this a lot in the chat. Well, it's the same looking game, and they made all these screenshots of everyone, just different characters from different angles, and they all look similar in presentation. That doesn't take away from the fact that they tell great stories, that these graphics are just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that God of War Ragnarok, which we've only seen a pinch of gameplay and mostly CG, is going to at least match what we have in front of us. So please, folks, I implore you, if you're being there are a lot of modders here, and Lethal Papa, I know that is watching. If he bans you for being a D-bag, don't come at me with a DM saying, why was I banned? Because he has full authority to do it. So do all my modders. Don't be that guy or gal. Just enjoy the conversation, enjoy the video in front of you, and let's talk about what's important. And that is the fact that God of War officially has Ragnarok has a release date, and Sony has put together one heck of a year. But Daniel, please continue.
That was pretty much all of it. The only other thing that I want to add is that because I feel like this release date announcement feels somewhat reactionary, it does make me feel slightly less. I don't know. It feels more likely that it might still get delayed. I hope it doesn't, honestly, because I want to play it. But just the fact that it was announced kind of like meekly on Twitter does make it feel like they're not super confident in it, which might not necessarily be the case, but it's just the feeling that I get.
Well, look, we're gonna know. We're gonna know soon enough. The end of the year is flying by. We're already in July, right? We're into the 7th month of the year. A lot of people in the chat are saying that this saved the holiday.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong. Last of Us, September. God of War, November. I know that there are a couple of games coming out. You still have Saints Row. You still have a few others. Obviously, Call of Duty is still a big part of the conversation. That's going to be a big game. But let me catch some of the super chats, and I will then we continue this conversation. Let's see. Servant117 drops the first super chat of the day. Thank you for putting this in the chat, Dave. Appreciate the help. He says this after dropping a very generous $5 super chat. I'm a huge Xbox fan, but God of War is a win for gamers everywhere, and I'm happy. And I'm right there with you. I think that's a quite a proper statement. Drawn TJ, generous friend of the program, says this after dropping a $5 super chat. No mag. By the way, Midnight Club is developed in Unreal Engine 5. Yeah, it's probably going to be the best Midnight Club ever released. I can't wait for that game.
Mhm.
Tim the Sorcerer. Oh, man, that's awesome, dude. You became a channel member. Thank you for that, Tim. Definitely appreciate that. Sith Lord drops a very generous $5 super chat and says this. Hi, Boom. I feel bad for all of the hate the devs got for this game so far. They are people too. My heart goes out to everyone who works hard. Indeed, some of the stuff that we heard, and I'm glad that this all started because this is an ongoing thing with devs. I mean, again, it's not new news. People are just terrible. People are just terrible. That's the reality. And people also in this world, especially the younger generation, feel incredibly entitled. And they say things because they can. Keyboard cowards, behind, to say mean and terrible things. And I'm glad that Sony Santa Monica stepped up and Corey came out front facing and said what he said. And then we started to see other devs come out and say, yeah, we're being harassed too, because it's something that maybe they were afraid to talk about because they don't want to hurt their game. Some of these games are made by 5 people and they're using their own personal monies and budgets that are like grassroots budgets. They don't have a big Microsoft behind them. So if they get out there and they put it out there that they're getting harassed, it has a potential to derail their game. But Sony Santa Monica took this by the horns and let people know that this isn't right. This is an unacceptable behavior. And I'm happy that they did that. We also have, let's see, who's this from? It says Wednesday. So
that was a description of explaining what Wednesday is important.
Yeah, it's Odin and Wodan's day. And it says here the English word Wednesday is derived from the old from Old English and means Wodan's day. The Germanic god Woden is also known as Odin, the Norse the Norse Allfather of the gods. So yeah, that's probably why they picked this day. And like I said, it works. So thanks for that so much. But so now, we got it. God of War's coming out. It's coming out this year. Like I said in the beginning, I took the L for. I thought it was going to be delayed. Honestly, folks, I really did. I thought that with The Last of Us coming in September, I was like, well, they don't need a later game, But here we are, and we get a chance to play this. I can't wait. Like I said, I recorded footage, an hour's worth that you see in front of you today, and I'm unbelievably amazed at how this game is from 2018. It's just crazy. It's just crazy, and it just plays and looks and sounds great. Captain Chats drops £2 super chat and says, how long do you think before Ragnarok comes to PC? That's an interesting thought. To be honest with you, if this sells, and it's going to sell, I think it's going to sell incredibly well. I would think 5 million sales between PS4 and PS5 in its first month without even trying, to be honest with you. This Kratos is as big for Sony as Master Chief is for Xbox. That's a fact. So this is a 20 million seller, folks. This goes in line with Spider-Man and God of War 2018 and Horizon and everything else. I don't know how long it's going to take to get to 20 million, but this is going to be a big game for them, and it's coming out this year. And I don't know if they're going to have PlayStation 5s to move. This is why they're going to support the PlayStation 4, because you can't really, hard to abandon 115 million potential customers. Now, not everyone's going to buy God of War. They'll sell a nice chunk on PS4, but not abandoning PS4 is big. That's actually a smart business move. So I kind of want to just I'm going to flip this and put the spotlight on Xbox for a hot second. And again, this is not console war shenanigans. This is a diehard Xbox fan who sees what he sees in front of us, sees the kind of year that they have put together. And again, Microsoft, no slouch. Last year, they put an absolutely astounding year together. There's a good shot that 2023 is going to be a Sony 2022 type of year for them, with Starfield and Redfall and, of course, Forza Motorsport. We don't know what the second half of the year is going to bring. You know, we could see Hellblade 2 and Holiday of next year. Some people say nay, but you know, we don't know. And whatever else they have up their sleeves, they could have a banner year. I do want to get the opinion of the panel regarding what we expect Microsoft to do. We know that they had an internal play test of The Last of Us 2. That's public knowledge, and they saw how that game was done. And Phil Spencer came out and said, "We want to deliver games as good as The Last of Us 2." Now, I'm not a fan of the story. I was very, very heartbroken with the way they treated some of the characters, but I also can't deny the fact that The Last of Us 2 is just it's unbelievable. It's a masterclass achievement from Naughty Dog. I'm again not a fan of the story. I didn't like the way the story was broken up with I thought it got dragged down with those flashbacks. I hated the way that everything was positioned, and I hated what they did with Ellie. And I really hated what they did with Ellie's arch nemesis. My God, why is her name?
Abby?
Her name Abby. Yes,
Yeah.
I fell in love with Abby. I thought she was such an amazing character. I was devastated how they treated that character at the end. I just was so angry. But now we see this. Sony has put forth a hell of a year. One hell of a year. Whether you agree with me or not, I hear you. I absolutely hear you. If you don't agree with me, this is a banner year. This is the Sony that we knew we've been seeing for years. The question is now, do we think Microsoft is going to deliver a game as prominent as the God of War Ragnarok potentially next year? Can Hellblade 2 match that? I think that they can. I honestly believe that all of the the subpar games that we got in the Xbox One era, those days are well behind us. They have too much talent, and I think that the games that we have coming, like Perfect Dark and Fable and Hellblade and Obsidian's secret game in development, and Exile's Unreal Engine 4 and Gear 6 and whatever else they're working on. I think we're all going to be treated to some graphical masterpieces from Microsoft. But Dave, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that there's definitely the potential for Sony to really make a good strong statement this year. So Microsoft, we know about the delays and everything, but I still think they may still have something up their sleeve that they just haven't quite announced yet. Now, obviously not necessarily a banger like this, but I believe that there is definitely going to be a few more surprises to help keep us appeased, as it were, until they get into to next year's juggernaut releases that are coming. I really believe that they have a roadmap, and they have a backup plan, as it were, that's gonna be made known as it gets closer. They don't need to show their cards right now. They want to hold that a little closer, and then definitely when it comes to like the Game Awards this year, I think they're going to be able to really, not necessarily shut people up, but I mean to definitely put a definitely a good spin on the new year that's coming out. For all the game releases. And like you said, there's even some third party things that we know that are in the works that are coming that we don't know about yet because they just haven't been announced yet. And earlier we were talking about like the game of the year talk. And this game is absolutely beautiful, but I don't know what the cutoff date is for like a game of the year.
I believe
I think God of War will be in there.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's the Keeley, so I would imagine that if he were to make concessions, I think, if I'm not mistaken, chat, please help me out here. The cutoff date, I believe, is the 15th of November.
Yeah.
So if in fact that is the case, this just makes it
right. But it's still going to be hard for it to beat Elden Ring, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to really is how early they get the review copies out, because the people who are judging it are going to want to be able to play it. It's not a particular, I'm sure it's not a particularly long game. If it's anything like most PlayStation first party games, it's probably like, you know, a weekend game, 3-4 days tops. So if they can get it out early enough that the votes can still come in, then I think it'll be up there. And honestly, I mean, it's going to be a tough fight between Ragnarok and Elden Ring, assuming Ragnarok hits that date.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, because obviously, like, you know, the Keeleys have like a fairly clear like PlayStation skewed side of things. Not that that's necessarily a terrible thing. But then also Elden Ring has been the most anticipated game of the year twice in a row. So I mean, I think it'll be a tough fight, but God of War probably take it just because of like the additional, like it's going to be a more popular game because more people are going to be able to finish it, because Elden Ring is really hard and a little bit more niche than something like a God of War.
I don't know,
also,
but so many people have played Elden Ring to this date. You know what I'm saying?
True.
And it's got quite a, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a juggernaut, and plus it's also available on more platforms, so
Also,
it's had a broader appeal. I think that's also may have a little bit to do with it. Well,
That's
maybe it's
It's
just
gonna be a
me, but
tough fight,
I'm telling
for
you,
sure.
I still play it.
Yeah, it's cross mainstream for the most part, so that definitely gives it a I guess you could say a leg up to some extent, but it's going to be a tough fight.
Elden Ring has certainly broken into mainstream in a way that Souls games typically don't, and I'm really happy about that because I've loved Souls games since Demon Souls, the original one that wasn't very good. But like it breaking into mainstream, I don't know if that's going to be enough to combat God of War, which is the mainstream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to be a fight. There's no doubt about it. But I'm going to be honest with you in regards to that particular topic. Even if God of War is a 10 out of 10, I find it's going to be hard to beat Elden Ring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I could be wrong, but you know, listen, December will be here before you know it. But let's Fuzzy. What are your thoughts on this? Microsoft matching levels of The Last of Us and God of War, and we know that they have the chops, they have the people to do it, they have the IPs to do it. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's something that they will eventually achieve. I think Hellblade 2 is going to be probably their first big step into that, because like with Starfield, it's going to be a little bit of a different deal. Even though it's going to have storyline to it, it's going to be more of an open sandbox, although be it in space. So it's not quite the same like linear path and you know, story driven narrative that you know a lot of those games tend to have over on PlayStation. But I think Hellblade will definitely fill that niche. I think whatever Compulsion's working on, even though Phil keeps talking about it, we still don't see it. I think that game is also going to have that nice story-driven narrative aspect to it as well. And even Redfall will have a nice story-driven narrative to it as well. It's just that they've figured out a way, I guess, to kind of blend co-op into it as well. So we'll see how all of these things turn out. But I think there is going to be some studios within, you know, Microsoft's, you know, big umbrella that they're going to be able to churn out these, you know, on par stories that are going to be either critically acclaimed or award-winning type of stories. I mean, whenever you look at the competition and you basically do your homework based on, you know, certain evaluations and things like that of what is considered, you know, a highly critically acclaimed game like The Last of Us, you're bound to pick up some of the nuances that people are looking for in the game. So I think they're pretty much ready. It's just COVID and timing and the fact that they have you know, they have to deal with spreadsheets to figure out which game is going to be the next one to be released when they're, you know, start having 3 and 4 of them ready at a time. I think that's going to be the big, I guess, you know, hurdle for them. But I think they will be able to achieve, you know, similar critically acclaimed levels as PlayStation. And I think Hellblade will be that first, you know, peek into that.
I'm glad they have this that kind of problem they're going to be having. Too many games. I'm digging.
Well,
that.
I mean, you know, that's something to be said. Hellblade has the potential, and that's why they did all the. One of the biggest things we talked about yesterday in the Xbox Factor podcast is the fact that they sent the entire mocap team to training for fighting. And obviously, one of the complaints or issues that some folks had with Hellblade 1, besides the puzzles, was the combat was very, very minimal, to the point where it only happened in certain locations, and it was really just whacking around on two buttons. There wasn't any, real, RPG element. I think that we might get that. Again, I'm just speculating, but they said that it's going to be a much bigger game, and I would imagine that the combat is going to be a big part of it, and we could see an RPG type of element that you find in a God of War Ragnarok, or you find in Horizon Forbidden West, come to Hellblade. And I think it would do the game justice. It could still tell an incredible story, but at the same time, it could still have those Elden Ring big boss fights, which I hope that they do have. Daniel McGee, let's get your opinion on this, brother. What are your thoughts on Microsoft matching what Sony has done this year in 2023? And more importantly, do you think we get a game that's like God of War Ragnarok?
In terms of matching them, I think that it's entirely possible, if not likely. Starfield is going to be really, really big. Redfall's going to be big. Whether we get either Avowed or Hellblade next year, one or the other, I think that's going to be enough. In terms of, are they going to put out a game that's like God of War? I don't know. Hellblade could be that. It's sort of definitely in that same sort of vein. It is like a third person sort of action game, and it's Norse, so that helps the comparisons. But I almost kind of hope that they don't. To be honest with you, I really like, I'm lucky enough that I have all three consoles, and I like when they're doing different things, because it means that when I go to my different consoles, I can get a different flavor from each of them.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I don't want everyone to be doing a God of War necessarily. If Xbox wants to be the house of shooters and RPGs and racing games, and PlayStation wants to come out with their, really big blockbuster third-person action games, and Nintendo's off doing their platformers and Pokemon thing, then I'm a happy
We're
camper.
all better for it as gamers. Yeah, it's a great point. Great point. Yeah. Well, listen, folks. This was an impromptu podcast. We didn't expect to do a 2 hour. It's gonna be 60 minutes, because what could we say? God of War confirmation coming 11/9/2022. Ragnarok is finally going to be released. I'm sure that after the last week that the team was just inundated with hate from again, I can't say what community it was. Was it their own community that did it? Potentially. Good. Is it Xbox people in there being D-bags? Potentially. I'm glad that the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, for Sony Santa Monica. Now that we have a release date, now we know it's coming this year, they can continue putting the polish on the game, and they don't have to worry about people sending D-pics, which is just disgusting and is head scratching, to be honest with you. But listen, if you enjoyed today's podcast, I ask that you do me two things. One, if you're new to the channel and I saw some new names in here, please consider subscribing. This is a non-toxic, non-fanboy, non-console war channel. We talk about games. I do it 4 days a week. Monday nights, primetime gaming. Tuesdays afternoon. Not Mondays. I'm sorry. That used to be the old schedule. Oh, my God.
That's all right.
Okay, so the schedule is this. Tuesday afternoon, the Xbox Factor podcast, 12 p.m. Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Tonight, we have Primetime Gaming. We have Dealer Gaming joining us.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to be a great show. Thursday is the X Vlog Live. That is an Xbox-centric channel. I usually do the one-on-one guest kind of a thing, and we talk about a hot topic and what's going on. And I'll be sitting down with one half of the dynamic duel from Games On Daily. Asa is going to be joining me tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Friday mornings at 10 a.m., when you're getting your coffee, you're getting your bagel, you can listen to Breakfast with Boom. Dave, Web Dave is a part of that. Fuzzy Belvedere is a part of that. And this Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me just catch up on a few of the super chats that I missed. Will come to us from a good friend of the show, actually a person that's actually on Breakfast at Boom. Web, thank you, Web Dave, for that. John Wolf drops a $5 super chat and says, kudos to Sony Santa Monica for working hard to put this game out in 2022. See you guys Friday on Breakfast with Boom and enjoy the rest of the week. Yeah, we'll see you there, John. No problem. We also have a one from Christopher Jetzer. Drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, God of War Ragnarok is supposed to be 45 plus hours, according to Jaffe, as they are putting essentially two games into one. Yeah, this was originally thought to be a trilogy, but it's not. It's going to be the two games, and then they're going to be done with Kratos in this story. Obviously, he will come back at some point. 45 hours sounds great to me. I usually put 50 hours into their first party games because I don't rush through them. I kind of like to go off the beaten path. I like to find all the collectibles. I like to, try to get a couple of trophies here and there. Not a massive trophy hunter. I have a pretty decent score, but I do like to go off the beaten path to find the secrets. But let's get to the outros, and we'll start with Web Dave. Sell your brand, brother. You just sat down with Colt Eastwood, which you released this week on the 4th of July. That was an incredible interview. Colt is a major player in the gaming verse that we all hang out in. Sell your brand, brother. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media, but more importantly, subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Thanks, Boom. Appreciate you having me on here. And Daniel, it's good having you here too as well. Thank you for coming in. Fuzzy, always good to see you, sir. You can find my channel at outbreakpodcast.com is my website, or I'm sure Boom will have the link here in the description.
Yeah, links for everybody.
I
as soon as I'm
that.
done, I'll put it in there. Yep.
And it's Outbreak Podcast on YouTube, and we have a lot of great interviews. Daniel, I'm going to have to talk to you. We have to get you scheduled for one here before long. But coming up next week, of course, Colt Eastwood is up there now, and that was a great interview. But I do have an interview that'll be going up Monday, and that will be Fonzarelli from Fonzarelli Gaming.
Oh, nice. We love Fonz. Yeah,
boy,
part of RDX.
He is awesome. Exactly. Looking really forward to that, too. He's an old guy like me, so, Thanks, Boo, for having me.
No problem, brother. Fuzzy Belvedere, please sell your brand, brother. Tell everyone where they can subscribe to your YouTube channel, and more importantly, where could they reach out to you and strike up a conversation on social media?
Well, just want to thank you for having me on today. Also want to welcome Daniel to the Double Barrel Gaming family.
Yes.
Awesome to be on here with you for first podcast together. Always awesome to be on here with you, Boom, as well as you, Dave, and everybody in the chat. Aside from the console warring, pretty good interactions and things, but man, for anybody that wants to hear my ramblings on anything gaming relating, specifically racing games particularly, just follow me on Facebook Twitter at Fuzzy_Belvedere or YouTube Fuzzy_Belvedere. And you can also find me here with Boom and Dave, and probably oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. You can find us on Breakfast with Boom on Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Shop Podcasts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on PTK Blam's channel, and find me on FSP on Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks again.
Yeah. Well, thank you, brother. And last but no way least, newest member to the Xbox Factor podcast, Daniel McGee. Brother, sell your brand. Tell everyone where they can check out your YouTube channel, subscribe, give you some likes over there, and maybe a listen or three. And also, where could they reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So on social media, you can find me on Twitter at Daniel J. McGee. And on YouTube, you can find me just at Daniel McGee. It's I talk about all the biggest news. Haven't been able to put out a video this week yet, but I'm working on 2 right now.
Nice.
I think I'm holding off to see what happens at that Ubisoft Direct to see if that's something we're talking about before I put something else out. But we'll see. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great getting to meet Web Dave and Fuzzy.
Yeah, well, great to have you here, brother, and great to have you part of the Xbox Factor Podcast Weekly. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the special edition or the breaking news segment of Primetime Gaming. We will be back here tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and our special guest is none other is of course the voice of the RDX podcast, lead voice of that podcast. Dealer Gaming will be joining us, and we'll be back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be talking about the God of War announcement. We'll be talking about the toxicity in the community and how that needs to stop. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about a lot about Xbox and what 2023 looks like and what it needs to be for them and their fans. And of course, we are all fans of Xbox. Thank you again for tuning in to this very special impromptu episode of Primetime Gaming. Super chats were great. I really appreciate those. But I also have to close out the show with something, folks, that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you tonight on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends.